Hello, and welcome to episode number 44 of TMC, where we are here to help you take your relationship
From surviving to thriving. Today on TMC, we are talking about myths that concern singleness.
And go ahead while you're tuning in and like, comment, and subscribe.
So on today, we want to welcome Jamila into the studio today. Yeah,
Yay.
just so excited to have her on today for another episode of Living Single. Jamila, welcome.
All is well.
Welcome back.
Glad to be here. Always good to be live in the flesh.
Absolutely.
On last week's episode, we dealt with marriage misconceptions.
Right.
And so this week's episode, we wanted to focus on some of the same things or something similar when it comes to singles. So Jamila, we were talking and we were kind of throwing out a couple of myths and things like that. So let's jump into the first one.
I think one of the myths around singleness is that people are single because no one wants them, which
Wow.
is the absolutely not true. Because one of the things from my experience is that I'm single because I've chosen to remain single, not
Right.
because nobody wants to be with me. Like, you know how at certain factories they have the reject pile
Right.
and they sell them at a discount.
Right.
You know, sometimes I think that's how people view singleness, like you in the discount, you in the reject pile or the factory. And I think that's not the case for a lot of singles actually,
Mhm.
because one of the things is that we have a choice. We have a choice whether to remain single, or to remain in a relationship, or to get married. So I just think that that's one of the probably the biggest myth. Like,
Mhm.
there's nothing wrong with me.
Right.
Right, absolutely. And I think that, sometimes, some people may be single because nobody want to be with them. But I think it's important, to understand that some people are making a conscious choice to be single. And that's the thing. For some people, they may be focusing on career, they may be focusing on school, they may even be focusing on shaping their own lives. I mean, we
Right.
talk about that a lot on TMC, and maybe that's what they're doing. They're taking this time as a time of preparation, a time of positioning, a time to change their lives, a time to become a better version of themselves, or to work on the things that they want to have accomplished before they get married. So it would behoove us to just think that somebody is single because nobody don't want to be with. So I think sometimes that is the idea because I wasn't single for a long time. I have to keep saying that. But you could think if somebody is 30, 40, like, why you single? Why you still,
Right.
why nobody haven't snapped you up yet? And for some people, it's a choice. For other people, they may have been in relationships before that it just did not lead to that, or it wasn't the right person, or they may be consciously making a choice just to remain single.
You know,
So
and I
that's
think
good.
to that, it could have not been the right time because the right person at the wrong time is still the wrong person. So
Mm.
timing is such a important factor in this
Yeah.
journey. And it's like you can't just, and one of the things I realized is that you can't rush the process, because if you are in the process of bettering yourself or completing something, don't rush that process, because there are a lot of valuable lessons that you get from the process. It's, you know, my analogy is that if you rush the process for a butterfly, when they come out of the cocoon, there's a purpose for the cocoon.
Right.
And that if you help them out, the wings are not strengthened, they can't fly.
Yeah.
And so it's the same thing with the process of, if you're in a process of preparing for marriage, there's some things that you have to learn,
Absolutely.
that you want to learn before you even get into that stage.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important. The other thing is that it's part of our journey. It's like we have to really break away from that microwave mentality, like here and now,
Mm-hmm.
immediately, even when it comes to relationships. And I've been guilty of that. It's like, I want something right now. But a lot of times things take process. And usually if you allow the process to organically and naturally go, it's a better product. It's a better end result. So
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Life is a process itself.
true.
It's a continual process. So wherever stage you are in the process, you don't want to rush that process so that you don't end up with a faulty product. because a lot of times that's the thing too, because when we're talking about this myth and you're single because nobody wants you, if you get caught up in that idea and you rush the process, so now you do end up in a relationship that's not necessarily for you, or it's
Mm.
not the right timing, or you're not mature enough, they're not mature enough, or you still have things that you haven't uncovered or dealt with within yourself, they still have things that they haven't uncovered or dealt with within themselves, and now you have this impode. And for some people, that can cause a lot of other problems. You have children with these people or things like that, and then you find yourself single a second time, and things like that. So the process is very important because it makes for a better outcome. Like you said, a better product, because you've waited on it to mature, to manifest, and to be what it is. And through that process, you've become better. If we think about everything that we've experienced in our lives, in some way or some form, it's shaped you, it's changed you, it's molded you, it's matured you, it's grown you.
Yeah.
And that makes you better for a relationship. And when I say relationship, not just male to female, but for any
That's
relationship.
true.
Yeah.
That's true. And I
Mhm.
think a lot of times, if you are rushing the process, it's because we're ready to check a box.
Mm.
Because a lot of times you get a lot of external pressure, and it's like, if say you meet someone, then
Mhm.
like, well, when the wedding? Can I find out his name first before you before I jump the broom?
Yeah.
So it's a lot of times to
Yeah.
rush the process to check a box, or sometimes it's to feel better. And so we
Mhm.
can be feelings led, that's a disaster in and of itself sometimes, because feelings lie and
Mm.
feelings change real quick,
Yeah,
Absolutely.
real quickly.
absolutely.
So having a wherewithal that, you say, I'm committed to whatever process I am
Mhm.
in, I think that changes how you see the journey. Because one time I heard somebody say, we're so destination driven that we forget about the journey. We need to be journey
Mm.
happy. And I think the same applies to singleness.
Oh
We
yeah.
can be in journey happy. And I actually think that's one of the other myths about singles, that we're all like lonely and depressed.
Mm.
I literally had somebody come up to me one time and they like, you're just so happy. I was like, am I not supposed to be happy?
Right,
Like, am I
right,
not supposed to
right.
have joy? It just threw me for a loop, because I'm like, how am I supposed to show up in my life?
Wow.
And so it threw me for a loop, because it's
Mhm.
like, I'm supposed to be happy.
Mhm. If you're lonely, if you're depressed, if you're sad, if you don't have fulfillment, if you don't have joy, then you're
Mm.
going to go into a relationship and you're going to find temporary moments
Yeah.
of fleeing
That's it.
happiness, and it's going to soon dissipate, and you're going to wonder, like, is this what it's really supposed to be like? But that is because we did not get to the root cause of what was going on. We did not uncover the things that needed to be uncovered. We rushed the process, and we did
Yes.
not go through the taking off the layers of things. And for those, if you did not know any better before you were married, then now if you are in a relationship, then you can do better, you can work on that. But if you are single, then you would shape your mind to think that I don't want to rush into this, because it's just okay. Somebody said I'm 42, I ought to be married by now.
Right.
And my mama keep asking about kids and all these things, and we don't want to do that, because all it's going to do, I mean, I'm basically piggybacking on what you said, but it's going to put you in a situation where you're going to find yourself in temporary moments of happiness, and it's going to always be fleeting. And then those problems will arise within that relationship, because you were not a whole person already.
Right.
Because when the word says those two shall become one, that means one as a team, as a unit, but they are two whole individuals
Yeah.
becoming one unit.
Yeah, I think the
Yeah.
most dangerous thing is a person that's single and think that they're missing out on something. And they get married and realize they was chasing
An
that.
illusion
Right.
almost.
Chasing
Yeah.
Yes,
illusion, right.
yes, yeah. It's like the cartoons when they have the mirage, like
Mm.
oh, you going up and like, oh, this is it, this is it. And then when you get there, you like, wait a minute, it's really no water here.
Right.
I'm still in the desert.
Yeah.
And you don't want to do that, because if you think about it, if you do go there and then you have kids and all of this, and you have one unhappy person or two unhappy people, and now you've brought kids into this, you've united two families together, and there's all this drama to go with that,
Yeah.
because it begins to fall apart unless you reach out and get some help, unless you recognize your issue, your problem, and you start getting a coach, getting a therapist, getting some help. Unless you do that to go ahead and say, okay, something is wrong, let me work on this, because I do believe that it's possible to fix it. But if you don't recognize that, if you never recognize that, I think it can be more damaging, because that's how we lead to having multiple families with multiple people.
Mm.
You left this person with 3 or 4 kids, and you left this person with 3 or 4 kids, and you left this person with 3 or 4 kids. And that's either way, whether it's the dad walking away and leaving a woman with kids, or you
Right.
left him and you had two for him, you left him and you had two for him. And now we've created this, and we're not only doing that, created these multiple families along the way, we've also taught our kids that this is how relationships go.
Right.
And until we do that work to get it together and do to be at least a better version of ourselves, I think it's a detriment to skip the process.
So the third one, the only thing that singles think about is being in a marriage, and that's not my focus.
Mhm.
Mm.
I think I've said it before. Marriage is not my prize. Like
Mhm.
marriage is something. Yeah, do I desire to be married? Yes, but it's not like the goal at the Olympics. Like
Right.
it's not the gold medal.
Yeah. Shouldn't be treated as a trophy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
For the longest, did not enjoy single ministries
Mm.
because the only thing that usually came up was marriage, and I'm like, I'm
Mm.
single.
Wow.
I need the single ministry to teach me how to live single.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like in so many cases, it was either all they talked about was marriage or where the men at, because we thought it was gonna be a hookup in here. It's like,
Wow.
okay, that, and so I grew to have a disdain for single ministries until I saw one done correctly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so yeah, but you do think that, because it's like, when you have those experiences and all they talk about is marriage at the single thing, I'm like,
Mhm.
this is the single. This is
Yeah.
not marriage ministry.
Yeah.
Wrong room.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
almost presented like we've talked about before, but it's almost presented like you're missing something. I guess for me, just thinking about it and talking through it right now, a lot of the myths that you're discussing right now would have to do with misconceptions that we're taught from
Mm.
early on in life. That marriage is something that people may desire, is not the prize of their life.
Yeah.
And even if they are single for a certain length of time, it still may not be the prize of their life. It may be something they desire to do, but they may not say, "Oh, I can get married and just die tomorrow." That just
Right.
I don't even have to
But
live with it.
you said something really important, that growing up, how we're framed to think about
Mm-hmm.
older unmarried people. Because remember that game, Old Maid?
Yes.
What was the old maid? It was,
She was alone.
that's
Yeah,
it.
she's an old lady. She was alone.
And what do you hear people? I don't want to
I
die
don't
and
want to
grow
find no
old.
old maid. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to die and be grow old and alone. It's
Mhm.
like, but don't you have family and friends? You don't, like, what type
Hmm.
of world you
It's
live in?
interesting.
So it really
Yeah. It's
is.
interesting. Yeah.
And I think a lot of the, and because as you were talking, and I'm thinking, I'm like, where does these ideas come from? Because I'm like, nobody never told me that. But then I think about, like you said, when we were kids, you have that auntie or that uncle, and they like, he ain't gonna never settle down and get married. Oh Lord, she ain't married yet. She don't. Oh child, she ain't got no kids. She don't have nobody to leave nothing to. All of these things, and so it shapes us into thinking that
Mm.
there is something wrong with this. And so
Yeah.
then you have the idea, and then you have the single person that all they talk about is a husband. So then the mindset is that every single person desires a husband. They want a wife. I can't wait till I get married. And it's not necessarily true. I mean, for everybody, obviously that's not necessarily
No.
true, but it's the ideas that are kind of embedded in us from just conversations, the way we are raised, and the way people kind of say things, present things. Not necessarily that it's the truth, but it's the ideas that we have.
That's true. How we
Mm.
picture it. Like when my alarm clock goes off in the morning, I don't hit it and be like, "Oh, what am I gonna do today to get married?" That is not how my day goes.
Gotta snag me one today.
Right.
I like that.
But you know what? I mean, speaking of that, I mean, I believe some people may do that.
I was
mean,
about to
because you have,
say.
because you have people dressed a certain way
Mhm.
because they're trying to attract something. The magazine. This is what you should do to attract this,
Oh
and it's just like
yeah.
it's all these different things, and this stuff is really conditioning us. And I think honestly, and hopefully for a lot of our Christian listeners, we have to really be careful and not get caught up in these magazines that's secular, and it changes your whole perspective perspective, and that's why you don't love yourself,
Mhm.
because you don't think you're worth anything, because reading the wrong magazines, you're listening to
Mhm.
the wrong people. Honestly, even in a Hollywood life, they can't even get their life together.
Mm,
Yeah.
People drinking and suicidal and drugs and all these different things, and they trying to tell you how to live your life. So we have to really be careful. And I think we need to go back to that word, that old doctrine, called the Holy Bible, and really going back to it and really paying attention and reading that. Read you some Proverbs, and stop reading table talk, or whatever this stuff. I mean,
10 ways to catch a man
yeah, I mean,
today.
yeah, I mean, you use that time to read your Bible, get in your word so you won't get caught up in this foolery, changing, renewing our mind.
That's true.
And I think that's what a lot of us, we need to work on, renewing our mind, getting this crazy, corrupt thoughts out.
Yeah, and I think what you just said is key because if we're especially to the Christian, we're believers in Christ, and yet we're letting the world and even what I just said, what someone has said, what has been spoken, what we've seen displayed, we allow these things to shape what we do and how we act and how we respond and live out our lives. So we're following worldly advice, yet we're expecting for godly principles to manifest. Like
Mm.
we want the kingdom marriage, but we're following
Mm.
worldly advice. We want the man of God, but we're reading things like 10 ways to catch a man that was written by somebody who has no sense of the word in it. And so I think
Yeah.
where we get all of these outside influences in, and we take all these outside influences in, and now we have ideas of how something should go
Mm.
and how it's supposed to look and how it's supposed to feel and things of that nature. And then it gets us confused. And sometimes we start accepting things that we should not accept because we want to, like you said earlier, check the box.
Yeah.
We want to gain something. We want to do something that looks good to everyone else's eye. Oh, they say I should be married by now. They say I should be in a
Yeah.
relationship. They gonna think something is wrong with me, and all of these other things. And so we're doing things to satisfy others
Mm.
instead of doing the work within self. And that's something that we talk about a lot on TMC. And it's because we wholeheartedly believe that when you're doing the work within self to be just to be a better person, period.
Yes.
When you're doing the work, if I show up better, we're going to have a better relationship. If I show up better, I can enjoy being single
Right.
because at this moment, what I'm understanding is that life is precious. Every single moment of life is precious, and where I am is important now as to where I want to be, which means if you desire to be married, that's great, that's awesome. But where you are right now is just as important
That's
as
right.
where you desire to be. And
Yeah.
instead of thinking that, I can't be fulfilled until I get to there, because I really hate to hear that anytime when a person think they cannot live their life, can't be who they are destined to be, or begin to be a full whole person and live out the life that God promised them until I get married.
Yeah.
Oh, until I have kids. Oh, until I do this, or until so we have all these markers that are going, it's like we're going along collecting these markers, and
Mhm.
until I collect them all, I can't be fulfilled or I can't be whole. That's a dangerous place for the mind to be. And
Mm.
I think that the mind should be, I love me.
That's
I
right.
love the person that God has is shaping and molding me to be. I love who God is making me to be. And as I'm on that journey, I'm going to enjoy the journey. So that's
Yeah.
not to say that as a single, you may not desire to be married, but that's not the only thing I desire. And although I desire that, I'm letting it happen in its own time, and
That's
I'm
right.
letting it happen naturally. I'm allowing God to mold me so that when I get to that position, I'm ready for it. When I get to that place in my life, I'm ready for it.
And I think Cedric could have asked me this earlier, and while you were talking, both of you were talking, it came to me because especially when you go back to Romans 12 and 2, and the word renew means to renovate. And that's
Yeah.
Mhm.
what we're talking about. Sometimes we have to renovate the things that we allow in.
Yeah.
I keep hearing this term over and over, and I'm like, what does that really mean? Because they're like, I want a high quality person.
Mm.
Mhm.
And it's just like, what is high quality? But it's like he's saying, we have to go back to the word. What does the word say?
Yeah.
Like,
Mhm.
Absolutely.
house is hard.
Yeah.
We can't focus on just the bank account or these external markers,
Mhm.
but house is character,
Yeah.
character over credit any day,
Yeah.
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 And but I think it goes back to like even the first myth that we talked about, that people think that you're single because no one wants you.
Mm.
So to combat that, you really have to have this powerful statement that I am enough, whether
Mhm.
I am single or
Yeah.
Mhm.
married. I am enough. Because that's what it's really saying, is that
Mhm.
you're not enough for somebody to choose you. No,
Right,
I
right, right.
am.
Mhm.
I just made a decision not, I didn't want that.
Yeah.
So I think it goes back to that I am enough, but it goes back to what you were saying too. What are we listening to? What are we feeding our mind? How are we renovating our mind? What
Yeah.
thoughts are we putting in? What are we feeding our spirits?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And if we're
Mhm.
not feeding the right thing, then it does tend to lead you to be lonely and depressed and all that other stuff. I think we've talked about that before.
I want to talk about before we get off. I want
Okay.
to deal with some practicals, and I already wrote some things down. What Jamila said to give the TMC audience, something to write down and something to apply in their life, even if you apply one of these. But the first thing Jamila said is say to yourself, "I am enough. I am enough." The second thing is what are you feeding yourself, and that's a part of being self-aware. Being self-aware. What are you feeding yourself? And then what are you feeding? What's growing you? I mean, what
Mm.
where are you developing? I mean, what's happening? I mean, so you have to get on that mental scale, just like you get on that physical scale. When you eat food and food, we can almost determine what food is good for us and what not bad for us, because when we get on the scale, some things make us gain weight, some things allow us to lose weight. So you have to get on that mental scale, just self-aware, and know, okay, what is this doing to me? What is this doing to my thinking? So be self-aware. And the last thing Sean said was enjoy yourself.
Mhm.
Enjoy yourself. So those three. So let
Well, I just wanted to park for a minute about enjoying
I was gonna
yourself.
say, I think you done wrapped them all
let's go
up.
for
Right,
it. Let's go for it.
right. Because I can be really, really honest and say that, and I think you told me this a lot, and I think you continue to have to tell me that, because I tend to be very future oriented.
Mhm.
And so you like be present, enjoy the moment, enjoy
Mm,
yourself,
yeah,
live for today. And that's something that I have to actively do every day, is enjoy myself. I have to make myself be present, because in my mind, I'm already in June,
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's like dial back. Let's
Mhm.
be back in May.
Yeah.
yeah,
But I think that is so important, to enjoy yourself right now.
yeah,
Absolutely,
absolutely.
absolutely. We definitely want to have future plans and future
Mhm.
goals, but if we
That's
only
right.
live forward, sometimes we're missing everything. And that goes back to what you said about the process. So
Mhm.
we're missing everything in between. So you're missing all the wonderful, awesome, magnificent things that are happening in your life, or that could be happening right now. All the things that could be building you right now, all the things that could be shaping you and molding you right now. You're missing out on that because you're so focused and driven on
Mm,
what is next.
yeah,
Although you want to have plans, goals, we always teach about that. We always want to have plans, goals, and not live haphazardly, but at the same time, enjoying the moment,
Yes.
enjoying where you are in life. I remember we were at a thing at church, and it's called the I Love Me conference, and she was telling the young lady, she was like, don't wait for a Valentine for someone else to do something for you.
That's right.
Enjoy yourself. Take yourself to dinner. And I've heard people say this before. Oh, I can't eat by myself. I'm a married woman, but I could go and have lunch by myself.
yeah,
Right.
You should be able to sit down and get you a book and sit down, or whatever you like to do. If you like to play games on your phone, get in your little booth and get your dinner and sit there and do whatever it takes. Date on you, love on you, get to know you, enjoy yourself right now, so that you don't miss all of the things that could be happening in between while you're planning for the future. Because once you get married, if that's what you desire, once you have kids, there's going to be so much for you to pay attention to other people. And you're going to have to remind yourself to pay attention to yourself. So do that now, so it can become a natural part of your routine. And you won't even feel like, oh, I'm missing out on something. Oh, I'm missing out on something.
You
yeah,
know what? The powerful part about that is that if you learn how to treat yourself, if you learn
Mhm.
how to celebrate yourself, then you have a standard in your life.
Yeah.
So when someone comes along and they're not meeting that standard, sometimes I think
Like,
I
what?
have made dating complicated. It's like, this ain't that complicated.
yeah.
This is the standard. This is how I treat myself. So
Uh-huh.
you either going to meet or
Or
exceed that.
exceed
And
that.
at this point in my
Mhm.
life, you just need to exceed it, because
Yeah.
I'm
Absolutely.
meeting it myself. So, okay. But it's
Absolutely.
like when you understand what
That's
you
good.
like, so
That's
you meet
good.
somebody,
Yeah.
they're like, what do you know? Oh, no. But if you
Yes.
are
Yes.
in tune with yourself, if you're celebrating yourself, I can tell you easily what I like, and I can tell you easily what I
But I
don't
don't like.
like.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so, but it's because I've treated myself well. I can tell you the things, experiences I enjoy, experiences I
Absolutely.
don't enjoy.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I
Yep.
didn't have to be married or in a relationship to discover those experiences and have an opinion about them.
No,
So I think that's a
absolutely.
powerful point, is that when you do that, there's a benefit to it. You're enjoying the moment,
Hmm.
you're treating yourself right. But the benefit is that if you do desire to start dating and get married, you can then tell someone else, I like such and such, or I don't like
Yep.
that.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep. Yep.
definitely. That's being a part of being self-aware. And I do want to
True.
say something, and I don't want to just dig into it because that's going to change the subject of where we at. You mentioned something about there's people, and there's people like this, So I want to speak to that individual. You don't want to be by yourself. We talked about Sean said she do lunch by herself, and she do. I would do lunch by myself, really get my book and just
Mhm.
reading, spending time with myself. Jamila, same thing. And I just want to speak to that. So if you're that individual where you can't, no matter what, it's like you don't want to be by yourself. I really encourage you to go seek some help, because if you don't want to be by yourself, there's a reason why you don't want to be by yourself.
Mhm.
Maybe it brings up things that you not ready to yet deal with. So I encourage you to go seek some help, because if you're in that type of mental state and you thinking a husband or a wife is what you need, what tends to happen is you bring that into the relationship, and the relationship is destroyed because you don't even know yourself enough to know what you want, and you never even spend time with yourself to even figure out what you want.
That's powerful. It goes back to the podcast y'all did about expectations,
Oh
because
Yeah.
then you
yeah.
come in with unrealistic expectations.
Yes.
Absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
they're built on nothing but thoughts and what you thought about, what you
Absolutely.
seen in a book, in the magazine, and on TV. And then you want them to do all this stuff and then realize I don't even like that.
Right.
Right.
So yeah,
Yeah.
it's important.
Absolutely. It's good. It's good. It's good.
Finally, we come to this myth. And I think it's just like this myth is like the summation of all the other ones, is that singleness is not good. And that
Mm,
is probably one of the biggest myths. Singleness is not a deficit
mm.
Mhm. Yep,
in no
it's
shape,
not.
form, or
Yeah.
fashion.
It's not, because at the end of the day, I think about what Paul said, and there are some people that they're going to live a life of singleness, and
Yes.
there are some people that are okay with that. That is what they desire, or that's what they have determined. They're like, that's what God has called them to live out, and they are comfortable and okay with that. They don't feel like they ever want to get married, and it's not like I think marriage is a bad thing. That's just not, on their radar, and whatever. So I think it's important for us to understand that I don't think that any status, whether you're married or single, is like, oh, that's good, oh, that's bad, in a negative way. They shouldn't have a negative
Right.
connotation. Whatever status you are in your life is good for you. It's good for you. But what may be good for you may not be the same for someone else. And it doesn't make it bad because someone is single, that, oh my God, oh, you married. Oh my God. They may feel the same way. But it doesn't. It's just
Yeah.
that's a part of their process.
Yeah.
That's their life. That's their walking out of what God has called them to. So each and every one of us are different. And I think that when we can remove the negative connotation from things, it
Mhm.
makes it a whole lot better, because I think that sometimes what you just said about single people thinking that singleness is not good, with that is something that causes people to also want to start, especially young people, want to start dating so early
Mhm.
before they're even mature enough to, because it's like embedded
Hmm.
in you, like being by yourself is alone, that's horrible.
Yeah.
And we don't want to do that, because you can grow, you can learn to be by yourself as well as with someone else, and whatever lot you are in life, you can walk that out. And everyone will not get married. Everybody doesn't even desire
That's
to
right.
be married. And if they don't, that don't mean they broken
That's
or
right.
something wrong with, oh Lord, something wrong with you. That no, that may not be
Yeah.
what they desire. They may desire, they want to continue, they've enjoyed their life as a single and they want to continue it that
That's
way.
it. Context matters,
Hmm.
because when we just broadly say, okay, you're unmarried, you need to be married, you don't know the context of that person's life. And that's what you were saying. And then, two, I am really big on words. So when you understand what alone it means all one. So I quickly correct people. And they be like, you alone. I'm not all one. I am single. I am unmarried, but I'm not alone.
Mhm.
But I really don't feel lonely or alone because I have a full life,
Yeah.
whatever parts of it is.
Yeah.
So I don't even feel alone. So even if we use it in the traditional sense, I'm still not alone. So that word doesn't apply to me. It is not
Absolutely.
synonymous with singleness.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. So I think the way to sum it up, and just to make this clear to the audience, being married is awesome.
Mhm.
Being single is awesome. Wherever you are,
Yes.
just enjoy the process.
Yes.
Enjoy the season where you are.
So we want to thank you for joining us today on TMC. If you enjoyed the video, go ahead and subscribe. Click the like button and turn on your notifications so you'll be notified when we upload a video every week. If you're listening on iTunes, rate the podcast and leave a review. Also, head on over to our leadership podcast, Lead to Greatness, where my husband is interviewing entrepreneurs and great leaders every week.
Well, thank you for hanging out with us this week on TMC. We look forward to seeing you next time as we continue to help you take your relationship from surviving to thriving.
Bye. See you next week.